Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Anushka Sheel, and I'm the National Director of Programs and Services with APDA. Unlocking Strength Within is APDA's webinar series on the emotional and mental well-being aspects of living with Parkinson's disease. We have an exciting panel discussion today all about working with Parkinson's. Now, I want to give our wonderful panelists, Keith Fritz, Sharon Gillardi, and Luis Torrez Jr., a chance to introduce themselves. Keith, it's all yours.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Keith. I'm 54 years old. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's 12 years ago, had DBS surgery in 2020. I was an English teacher, but now I'm a middle school, high school principal, and I enjoy hunting and fishing. My wife Laura and I enjoy our hobby farm and riding horses.
Thank you, Keith. Sharon?
Hi, I'm Sharon Gillardi. I live in the St. Louis suburb. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2014. I have been a wife for 44 years. I was a mother of 3 adults who are now adults anyway. 5 grandkids who are wonderful, ages 6 months to 14 years. I retired on December 31st of last year. After being an RN for 44 years, and 30 of those 44 were as a nurse anesthetist. We love to travel. We have great time with our grandkids. And now that I'm retired, I feel like I've got time to give back and do some other things, something new.
Thank you, Sharon. And Luis?
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Luis Torrez. I am almost 60, 59 years old, I'll be 60 in October. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's back October 2018. I worked in the transportation and logistics industry for 33 years and retired 2023 and started to enjoy life. And an avid sports cards collector as well too. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for being here. And I just want to start us off by saying that all of you were employed full-time when you received your diagnosis of Parkinson's. And I'd love to hear from you about what were some of your thoughts and concerns when you received the diagnosis about how Parkinson's would impact your ability to work.
I guess my job as a high school principal is one where my credibility matters a lot. So I was worried that the tremors, the speech difficulties, my strange gait might cause people to doubt me, doubt my decision making. I also didn't know if or when fatigue, might drag me down, because sometimes I work 50, 60 hours a week as a high school principal, and that's a long week, and fatigue is a real factor with Parkinson's. So those were my concerns.
Absolutely. And Luis, Sharon?
I feel like when I was first diagnosed, first you have to get over that moment of terror and the thought that, oh my gosh, my career is gone. Then you can kind of start coming around to it a little bit more, and really, when you start looking at things, you realize, you take one day at a time. You see how you're feeling, how things are working. You disclose information as needed. In my particular career, I discussed it with my physician, and he said I really didn't need to tell them at that point. Nothing was showing very greatly. My tremor was minimal. I didn't have any speech issues to start with. So, we just kind of like kept it on the quiet, and I was getting neuro tested in his office to make sure that, my thought processes were intact. So take it easy on yourself at first. Let yourself get used to the diagnosis and just go from there.
Absolutely. And Luis?
Yeah, I really didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you. I mean, when I first got the diagnosis, it was more like a gut punch. It was a bit of a is it why me situation. But I started to Google information and scour the internet, and I just realized that everybody has, those who have Parkinson's, it affects everybody very differently. So I had to manage my symptoms, which were basically freezing, shuffling, and gait, and it all had to do with just timing of medication. So I just needed to make sure that I timed the medication correctly, and I was good. But during those times where I wasn't, I wanted to make sure I wasn't on any kind of Zoom calls, and so it could be very noticeable that what was going on with me.
Absolutely. And all of you had and have very different careers. And how did your Parkinson's symptoms affect your day-to-day life at work? How did you manage your professional life and your work routines in a way that accommodated your Parkinson's?
I'll go. Sorry about that. I think, as I mentioned, that for me, it was primarily just making sure I managed my medications at appropriate times. I traveled quite a bit during the 5 years that I wasn't diagnosed until I retired. I traveled throughout Latin America and the U.S. and wanted to make sure that when I took my medications, it was during my on periods, and so it didn't affect me significantly while traveling or walking and on calls, So, but I think for me, it's just making sure I manage that correctly. I manage my fatigue as well too, because I got fatigued quite a bit. I started taking naps, which was never something I actually did before. So I started taking naps, and that actually helped as well. Just managing that time frame of calls and traveling and workload, I think is very important.
Absolutely. So managing medications, managing energy was key for you.
Right.
Correct.
Yes.
So my position, nurses and nurse anesthetists, we work very set hours, but not necessarily getting off on time. So, every day was variable as far as number of hours. So for me, like Luis said, managing your medication was critical. For me, I also could change shifts. I went from doing 12-hour shifts to doing 10-hour shifts. So shorter days at work. I could also delegate responsibilities. Like people would help me push stretchers. I could rest when I could. In my position, you could either sit during an anesthetic or you could stand. I take time to sit when I could. Reduce the number of steps you take in a day by, kind of pulling everything together, and doing it at once versus 6 times down the hallway. So just there again, just managing sometimes just moment to moment, little simple things that you can sit versus stand, and getting the medication in on time.
Absolutely. So again, a key part of this is managing your energy and being very thoughtful about conserving your energy when you can.
Mm-hmm.
And Keith?
Yeah, because my symptoms are less noticeable in the mornings, and because my schedule is flexible, I've moved what I can to the mornings and try to keep speaking commitments to a minimum in the afternoons and evenings where I can. It's not always possible though, because many parent-teacher conferences, back to school nights, those kinds of things are important, and they occur in the evenings. And so for those events, I kind of prioritize them by being even more strict with self-discipline with my diet, medication timing, and then how physically active or energetic I am at that time.
Absolutely. So all of you were very in tune with your own energy levels, with what you needed to do to manage your medication timings, and as that aligned with your professional responsibilities.
For sure.
Correct.
I was also very fortunate that my husband is extremely supportive. I would go to work and work my shift and come home tired, and I had nothing that I had to do at home. He, would take care of the house and do grocery shopping and all those little other things and the other side of life after you get home from work. So I was very fortunate in that I didn't have to do any of that either. He would take care of that for me. So that was extremely helpful, so I could rest and be ready for the next day.
That is a great point, Sharon. Thanks for sharing that, really leaning on your team, your loved ones who can support you in any way that they can.
Right.
Yeah. So a question that we get asked a lot is relating to disclosing Parkinson's at work, whether that's to your employers or to your colleagues. And this is a really sensitive and personal question to grapple with. So when did you know that the time was right to have that conversation?
Well, I didn't tell anybody till about 6 months after my diagnosis, but I knew I couldn't hide the symptoms forever. So that summer, I decided to tell my boss and my school board, and I educated my staff when they returned to work after their summer vacation in August, and they were all very gracious and understanding. And I've worked hard these last 12 years to continue to earn that grace and understanding from them.
Absolutely. That's great to hear that people were so supportive in your workplace. And Luis?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm sorry, Risha, can you repeat the question? Apologize.
Yeah, so the question was, when it comes to disclosing Parkinson's at
Okay.
work to your employer or your colleagues, it's a difficult question. How did you know the time was right to have that conversation?
It took me about at least 2 years because I think during the first 2 years, I didn't have significant symptoms, but you know, they were there, especially after taking quite a bit of carbidopa. I was developing also dyskinesia, so a lot of head movements. I just needed to make sure that what was going on. But when I noticed that my condition was progressing, I think at that point I made the decision to sit down and talk to my boss and let him know what was going on. And as Keith said, coworkers and management was very supportive, and they allowed me to have a flexible schedule. So I worked from home remotely, so that helped as well too. Managing medical appointments, doctor calls, doctor visits. I did a couple clinical trials as well too. So I think all that, having the support from your management and understanding, I think was very important.
Absolutely. And I think we have some questions from the audience to get to later that will ask a little bit more about, handling those conversations. Sharon, I know your perspective is a little bit different. Can you share
Right.
your story?
My symptoms were very minimal as far as like being able to look at me and see that I had Parkinson's. So I didn't tell my employer until the day I retired. Then I came forward. I did have a colleague that was aware, so that in case something unforeseen happened, that this person would know what was going on. But like I said, in conjunction with my movement disorder specialist physician, I asked him. I said, "Do I have to?" And he said, "No, you really don't have to, as long as you're capable of doing your job." So I didn't until like I said, the very end. So, but I'm sure they could see. They probably blamed it on aging. But that I was working less hours. Wasn't staying. Wasn't volunteering for any extra shifts. That kind of thing. That I was kind of cutting back on my own. So I'm sure they were suspicious that something was up, but not. They really didn't know until the last day.
Yeah. Yeah. And Luis and Keith, as you told the people you worked with, and Sharon, as you told your colleague, how did you prepare yourselves emotionally to have that conversation? I imagine that it was nerve-wracking. So how did you handle that?
Gosh, first I chose someone that I knew would be working similar shifts with me, so that they would be around when I was around. But it's just kind of a soul searching thing that you've got to do. So you choose carefully, but you just have to do it. Just to tell them what I made sure she knew what kind of symptoms I was having, and and tell her that I'd be aware of progression probably before she would, but just to watch. So
Absolutely, it's hard to put yourself out there and be vulnerable in that way.
Yeah, I think for me, and during the first 2 years, I lost quite a bit of weight. I lost probably 30 pounds. So I don't know why, but I just lost weight, and it was very noticeable for a lot of folks, especially my manager. And inquired, "Are you okay? Are you health-wise?" And at that point, I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to just try and lose some weight, be healthy." But it got to a point where I ended up confiding in a couple of coworkers who I had been working with for more than 10 years, and told them. And after I told them, I kind of made it a point to have an opportunity to speak with my boss as well too, so to let him know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for me, I guess I encounter a lot of people who think that Parkinson's is a mental disorder, and I emphasized it's a movement disorder.
Right.
And for me in my role, that I think helped.
Yeah, so what I hear is sometimes educating people as to what Parkinson's is. When you tell them that you have Parkinson's, letting them know this is what Parkinson's is, because not everyone is even aware of what Parkinson's is, or they have a misconception about Parkinson's.
True.
Well, and we don't all act the same. It's such a varied list of symptoms that people are like, "Parkinson's? Are you sure?" Well, yeah, pretty sure.
You sure?
But, it's just like I said, it's such a gamut, and it's different every day. And so I can see where people would have a hard time who are not used to hearing it and seeing the different symptoms. A hard time believing that that's what it is. So,
I got the same reaction, Sharon, as well too, from coworkers. Like, well, I didn't know, because they look. Michael J. Fox is such a visible figure in the Parkinson's
right,
community, so people associate Parkinson's with him, and they see
right,
him because he's had it for 30 years, so his symptoms are way
right.
advanced.
Yeah,
People would say, "But you're not moving, you're not trembling." Well, again, everyone's different.
exactly.
Your symptoms, everyone has a very different symptoms reaction.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that that's where at APDA we always encourage people to, if they are thinking about telling people in their lives about their Parkinson's, we always recommend passing on maybe the APDA Parkinson's handbook that can help them learn more about Parkinson's, so that the sort of burden of educating them is not 100% on the shoulders of the person with Parkinson's.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, all of you came from very different industries and very different work environments, from, healthcare to traveling a lot for work, to remote work, working in a school. What challenges did you face or do you face at work, and how do you cope with the hard days? How did you cope with the hard days?
Sharon?
For me, I always I tried to stay positive. I think that helps a lot too. If you're having a bad day, you try to rest when you can, like sit instead of stand. You can ask for other people to help you, like to sort of them help, like push stressors. In my case, let's see, you can do. Make sure that you get your medications readily available. Like keep them. I have some in the car. I have some in my purse. I have some. I have them in the locker at work, so that when you're managing your medications correctly, you've got that when you need to take it. On hard days, I also would try to not work any extra. Get off as soon as I could. But you're not in control of all that, at least in medical anyway. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think just knowing your limits, like, you're having a hard
Right.
day. Let's not take on anything else to
Right. Exactly.
make it harder. Yes, absolutely. Luis?
Yeah, I agree with what Sharon saying. I think managing that expectation as well too. Trying to make sure that when I'm able to coordinate, for example, Zoom calls, I coordinate them during my time, and trying to be a little bit selfish, but I kind of tend to be a little bit more selfish that way. And obviously, when traveling, making sure that when I'm traveling, I take my medication at the hours I'm most on, the on period, because I didn't want to be shuffling around and getting stuck at an airport, and unfortunately, as I get stuck, you get more anxious and so many people around. That just elevated the symptoms for me. So I just needed to make sure that I was taking medication on time, and I scheduled the flights appropriately. Sometimes I'd be traveling to South America, which are 8-hour flights, and that was really tough because managing your medication during an 8-hour flight was very tough. So it was a challenge, but you work through it, working with people as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, those travel days can be hard, especially when Parkinson's fatigue and medication timing and anxiety come into play.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Keith?
Yeah, Louise talks about you feel kind of selfish by moving things around to the times of day or whatever that are best for you. But really, if you think about that from a different perspective, you're giving your best to the highest priority aspects of your job when you do that. And so that's not selfish at all. That's selfless. And you're giving your best to the cause of the job, whatever that might be. So I think if you can have that perspective shift, that's helpful. And then, like you've heard before, leaning on other people. We had an interview last night for a teaching position here in my school. I could tell my voice was going to be going. So I asked my colleagues on the interview team, you guys, can you pick it up for me? And they just did. And it was fantastic. So,
yeah.
Absolutely. And, I just want to highlight what you all said, like, taking care of yourself is not selfish, because the more you can work in accordance with your own comfortable times and abilities, that may let you work for longer too and show up in the best version of yourself at your workplace.
Yeah. One more point, Nishka. What really helped me as well too is I'm an early bird, and it's probably like a lot of people that what really helped me was exercising in the morning. Sometimes, most of the time, I went to exercise before taking my medication, so I would struggle to really exercising. But I felt that really got me started in the morning. It kind of loosened me up, my joints moving and stiffened, so that really helped.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And Luis, thanks for bringing up exercise. I wanted to ask you all, Parkinson's brings a lot of demands on your time, not only, balancing the medication, the medical appointments, rehabilitation appointments, and your full-time work, but also maintaining a regular exercise routine. So what tips do you have for how you balanced your job, your health or exercise, and your personal life?
I can say in my case, it adds up all day long. So if in between cases I could stretch or do some, foot circles or hip stretches or whatever, all that adds up during the day. But basically I've always been told that it doesn't matter what exercise you do as long as you do it.
Yeah.
So try to get 30 minutes a day in. I love walking. When I was working, I was walking all the time. That was not a problem. Now that I'm retired, I have to take the time to go out, and I walk my 2 miles a day. It doesn't matter how long it takes me. I just walk my 2 miles a day.
Yeah.
And then you can do your stretches and strengthening exercises, which I should do for osteoporosis as an aging female anyway. So my point is you don't have to, go to the gym for an hour and a half. You can do 10 minutes here, 5 minutes here. While I'm waiting for something to come out of the oven or waiting for laundry in the dryer or whatever, you can sit there and just fidgeting, wiggling your hips around and stretching your arms is exercise. So just kind of fit it in where you can. You don't necessarily have to be at the gym.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable advice to hear about how you integrated exercise and some flexibility into your workday.
Right.
I think that's great. Luis, Keith, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think just as Sharon was saying, it's important to take care of yourself, take care of your body, and be kind to yourself as well too. I think it's important because there are days where I didn't feel like working out, but I willed myself to do it because I knew that was going to help me during the part of the morning and during the day. And again, like Sharon said, I basically do 30 minutes a day, 6 to 7 days a week. I work out.
Right.
And again, I've always been very active, but I became more active with my diagnosis, and I honestly believe that the exercise has really helped me in slow the progression of this condition. So.
Yeah, and Luis, it sounds like you said before that you did your exercise before you started your workday.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's something that sometimes people struggle with, finding the right time of day because you may be too fatigued after work. But, exercising before work may be an option, or taking exercise breaks during the workday may be an option as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
And like Sharon said, it doesn't have to be a full 30-minute workout. You can do 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, as long as you're moving. I think that's the key.
Absolutely. And Keith?
Yeah, well, some of my hobbies, fishing and hunting include lots of walking in the outdoors, and so sometimes I'll take the long way around a piece of property, or I think when we were talking before, park in the back of the parking lot for an extra distance for walking, just build it into your day. For someone like me, I don't like exercise at all, and so I have to kind of bake it in to make it happen, and that's been effective for me because it is. You should treat it like a prescription.
Right.
Absolutely.
The disorder, and so if it does that, and we know that it does, then we've got to stay as faithful to it as we do to our capsules and tablets. Yeah,
that's important. It's spot on, Keith. I think I completely agree with you. We have to treat it like a prescription because it really is. Yeah, to the point.
Absolutely. So all of you, you worked for several years. You're still working after your diagnosis, and as the years passed in your career, what new career changes or opportunities came your way after your diagnosis, whether that was a change from more travel to more remote work, or changes to your work schedule? What are some changes that you experienced?
I changed working hours, like the number of hours I was working in a day. I had the luxury over the last year and a half that I worked to work 3 10-hour shifts, only 30 hours a week versus 40. And that was instrumental. Otherwise, I would say my adaptations were make sure that I knew how to manipulate my medications with my doctor's advice, and then to rest as when I could, and to be nice to myself. You can beat yourself up a lot with this disease, thinking I should have, I could have, I would have,
Yeah.
but if you just you know let yourself have a little pity party every now and then, but then pick up and go on, because that's what you need to do. You have Parkinson's, it doesn't have you.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love that point about being kind to yourself.
Yes.
And Keith?
Well, I think once upon a time, I guess I dreamt of going from the principalship back to the classroom where I had the most fun, but I don't think that's possible anymore. So I've stayed in this job. I'm still enjoying the job. I can do it well. And so for now, I'm just still riding that wave, and we'll see how long it lasts, but I'm doing okay.
Good.
Great. And Luis?
I think for me, it was more along the lines of, again, to like Sharon and he said, being kind to myself, being honest with myself as well as what my capabilities were, what I can and cannot do. And I think what opened up for me is during those 5 years was really a reflection of being honest and saying, I can only do up to this point, and if I'm not making my appointments, if I'm not making my reports on time, I got to be honest with myself and say, I can no longer do this. It's going to affect my company, my boss, my work. And I think that sort of come to Jesus term,
Yeah.
and just understand that this is what I can do up to this point. And then at that point, I was traveling a lot, but during my 5 years that I was diagnosed, COVID hit. So COVID basically went from me traveling almost 50% of the time to traveling practically zero. It was almost remote. So that helped manage a lot of my expectations at work, and so personal as well too.
Absolutely. And I think, what I hear from you is, you're not just like being honest with the people around you at work. It's also being honest with yourself, which can be the hardest part.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we have a lot of questions from the audience, but before we get into the audience questions, I want to ask you, for those of the viewers who are still working, what advice do you have to share with them?
There again, be kind to yourself. Get up in the morning, and if you're not having a great day, just take it a little slower. Do what you can to stretch your time out till you start. The medicines will kick in. You'll start to feel better. Also, I would say, like I said, letting yourself feel sorry for yourself for a little bit, but then you got to get up and move on. Listen to your body. There's times when you get cramps and you need to stretch, and don't ignore that. Get through that. And then you may have to change your priorities a little bit. Maybe change the time of day you do things. Go into work a little later. But just do what you can do without beating yourself up every day. There's enough other things to worry about.
I think for many of us, remaining in the workforce is very doable as long as you remain open to alternatives, whether it's a different role in the same organization or a different job altogether, or the same job with a different employer that might be more understanding and accommodating of your challenges. Be kind of bold down that avenue of being open to alternatives in the various forms that they come in.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate both of you sharing that. And Luis?
The first, when I was diagnosed in 2018 through 2023, it was a tough 5 years because at the end, my position was eliminated. And so I ended up being fired from work, let go from work. And so at that point, as well, to 2023, my condition had progressed. So I made the decision to leave work. But it opened up other opportunities in the sense that, I got to meet a lot of strong people, a bunch of warriors that are fighting this condition. And I think it's important as well too to make sure you surround yourself with a network of people, because that really helps, and it's helped me. And again, I've met some really great folks, and I think this is an opportunity for me to be a big advocate for what we're going through.
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful to all of you for sharing your personal experiences. And now we do have some questions from the audience that audience members have submitted. So I'll just share them. If any of you feel like you want to answer, just jump right in. The first question that we've had submitted is from a person with Parkinson's who's working as a computer programmer, and they feel that they are having some slowing down at work with regards to troubleshooting. And I think if any of you have advice on how to handle a sense of, slowing down at work, whether that is through medication management or other strategies, I think that your advice would be appreciated.
I would say, I work on a computer, but sometimes you can work at home. So maybe instead of having to get up and go into work every day, maybe, a couple of days at home would help, in hopes that, if you're skipping the commute, you've got a little more time to get up and prep for your day. So I would think that might be helpful. And there again, changing work hours if you can. That's not always feasible, but, sometimes if you think it may not be possible, but if you actually check into it, things will work out, that you can change it so that you're not going in until early or working as late.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So making those modifications and accommodations. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Does anyone else have any thoughts on handling that sense of slowing down at work?
Luis?
Yeah, I just think that, again, we'll go back to the same statement, is be honest with yourself. I think for me, I noticed I was getting fatigued more often. I started to slow down. I was missing on-time report deliveries. And at that point, you have to say to yourself, can I continue to do this? And if not, then, make that decision of either leaving or asking for maybe less hours. But I think it's very important to really be honest. And as Sharon said, listen to your body. Because that's going to be the indicator to let you know what you can and are not capable of doing anymore.
Absolutely. I have, sorry, Keith, did you have something to add?
Just that being mindful again. It's come up over and over and over again, but because the disease is one with so many different manifestations in each of us, some of them common, some of them not so common, and because the remedies for those are so varied too. For some, rest is better. For some, different nutrition is better. For some, medication adjustment is better. For some, timing of the day is better. I think it's a conversation to have with your care provider if you can, and say, this is my need. What ways should we be looking at to try and meet that need, and try that out and see if it helps?
Absolutely. And I think having that conversation with the care provider, they can help you figure out some of the medication management that, you have shared is so helpful. Mm-hmm. Our other question from an audience member, the audience member has asked, did any of you complete FMLA forms or take FMLA leave?
I did not.
Me neither. No.
I actually did the first 3 months, the first 4 months, the first 3 months of the year of 2023, when I actually ended up being like, leaving the company. Yeah, so I ended up taking about 3 months leave before retiring. So yeah.
Yeah. And that question ties into our next one. Someone has written in saying, I need advice on navigating the end of my career. Can I apply for Social Security disability? And they say they don't want to disclose the cognitive impairment that they're experiencing to their employer. They just want some information on SSDI, what steps to take to navigate that. And Luis, if I remember correctly, you could speak to this because of your experience.
Yeah, about a couple. I had read up to it before I actually ended up retiring at the end of July, at the beginning of end of June of 2023. About a month afterwards, I ended up applying for SSDI after speaking to a couple of people. I ended up getting a severance from my previous employer, so it helped me sustain me for a couple of months. But the SSDI was very key. Now it took 10 to 11 months to get approval, so it really strained me financially. But at the same time, I got people were recommending me to get a lawyer, but because the percentage they say up to 70% of the people who apply for SDI in the first time don't get approved. So I was really worried, but thankfully I got approved. It just took a lot longer. But based on recommendation from many folks I've spoken to who actually have SDI, end up getting a lawyer to help them through the process because it's a lot of paperwork. You have to a lot of detail. You got to get notes from your doctor, detailed notes, making sure you got everything, all the T's crossed and the I's dotted. It wasn't a easy process, but it can be done. Again, I don't know what the cost of a lawyer is, but the recommendation for many folks is to get one to help you through the process.
Absolutely. And for anyone viewing this, if you're interested in learning more about this process, you can reach out to APDA, call us or email us. We'd be happy to get you connected with some local resources.
That's nice.
Yes. And another question that has been submitted, all of you worked very long hours or very physical jobs in different ways. And someone has written in saying that they are a mechanic. It's a physical job. They work 40 to 45 hours a week. And they've asked, is it okay to crash on the weekend? Am I just expecting too much from my body and mind?
That goes back to the listen to your body. If you can crash on the weekend, crash on the weekend. Get that rest when you can. It's amazing how much better you feel when you can sleep, 8 hours instead of 6, because you've got time. You're not getting up to go to work. But no, absolutely, crashing on the weekend is normal.
Mm-hmm. My wife has been a tremendous blessing to me by, like you were talking about your husband, Sharon, creating and maintaining that home environment where I'm free to nap, decompress, eat protein, have a beer, even when it means I can't speak or move well for a while because of the meds interaction. It's okay to crash in your downtime. That's that rest. Yeah, it's okay. It's good.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's important to listen to yourself or your body, like Sharon said earlier. If it's telling you to rest. And I was never a person who took naps during the day. It was very difficult for me to take that, but I found myself having to do that because it actually helped.
Yeah.
Kind of refresh me and then kind of get up and do my thing. So yeah, it's very important and it's really okay to crash. I mean, no issue.
Yep, absolutely. It seems that resting can help you avoid total burnout.
Yeah.
And I have someone else who has written in from the world of education. This person has shared, stepping aside from my 34 years teaching 4 to 6-year-olds has been the biggest effect Parkinson's has made on me. The fatigue, balance issues, and lack of confidence interfered with the skills of multitasking and high energy that I needed at my job. So I made the decision to retire 5 years ago. It's been 5 years since then. I'm involved in exercise and helping others with Parkinson's, but I'm surprised at how much I feel lost and unsure of my purpose. The financial impact has been hard on my family as well. So for all of you, and especially Sharon and Luis, since both of you are both recently retired, could you speak to the journey of discovering your sense of purpose after leaving a long career, and also maybe to the financial impacts as well?
I have to wonder if she is a teacher, if she couldn't maybe get into tutoring for a little extra income. Even if you don't have high energy, you're fatigued, still tutoring it one child at a time, seated. You can even do it, by Zoom meetings, whatever. So I'm wondering if she's checked into that as far as for extra income or to return to earning money. Volunteering is rampantly available. You know, there's schools, there's churches, hospitals, you know, organizations, eh, tons of places to volunteer. If you can sit for a minute and decide what it is actually that you'd like to help out, there are tons of opportunities for that, not just Parkinson's. But so I would say, do a little soul searching, see what you like to do, and then get out. And if you can't get hired, volunteer.
Yeah, I concur with everything Sharon said. I think it's important to really be with yourself and try to figure out what it is that you want to do, because this condition is not going away,
Mm.
unfortunately. And I think for me, what I found, and again, everyone's different, but I found that being diagnosed with this condition, I think, has been somewhat of a blessing. I hate to say that, but because it really allows me, it's allowed me to be more purposeful in what I want to do after retirement. I think for me, what I found is that I want to help and I want to be an advocate, especially for men and also for Latino males and the Latin community. You know, I think it's important because I think there's a void there that needs to be met. And I'm involved with obviously the APDA. I was also involved. I have a Zoom call I started when I was in Florida for men, weekly Zoom call every Monday. So I think that's important for people.
That's good.
And you know,
Oh, it looks like we may have lost Luis. So, while he comes back on, Keith, you are a fellow longtime educator, and while you are still working, do you have thoughts on this question of finding purpose after retirement?
Well, I do. I'm 54, so I'm a few years out from being able to retire at the age where the great state of Iowa kind of allows public employees to retire. But it's on my mind, and my hope is that when I do make that decision, it's not Parkinson's that forces it so much as just the age of retirement. It's time to do more fishing, that kind of thing. But to find a sense of purpose, I'm blessed with grandkids, and I feel myself, pouring myself into their activities probably more at that time, as so many grandparents do.
Yes.
Yeah, so maybe my world of purpose will shrink a little bit, but it may become much more focused and probably family oriented in my case. Yeah.
Yeah. Different purpose, but still nourishing your heart.
Someone can always use you,
Yes.
Yeah,
even if your children, your like your grandkids. So your children are their parents, and so you can help them out, like by even just like being the taxi driver. It's like drop this one off or pick this one up or stay with this one while this one is gone. It's just it's like air traffic control sometimes with my grandkids, but yes, that's another area that you can be used in. It's very gratifying.
Absolutely. And Luis, welcome back. I know you were sharing about you feel that part of your purpose is to be an advocate for, people with Parkinson's from your community.
yeah, and again, sorry about that. My phone cut off there, but yeah, I feel like I have a new sense of purpose, and that's really to be an advocate while I still can and help out the community of Latinos as well as for men. Again, one thing I identified when I was in Florida attending a speech therapy group, the men that were there were like hesitant to share, and I think what I did I just really figuring out is that men tend to share more when they're amongst other men. And so I started this group, and it's been very helpful for us and for the people who joined the club. But just in general, just sharing, just sharing with people, talking to people, knowing that you're not alone, and you're going through this with a million other people in the United States, and it's important really to have each other's back and support one another. And I just think that it's something that it's given me a sense of direction, so to speak.
Absolutely. And before we wrap up, I think one of our audience members, Sanjay, had a nice comment that really aligns with what all of you shared today. Parkinson's does certainly bring with it so many challenges. Every day there are different challenges, physical, emotional, or psychological, but you're still in control of staying active and finding ways to maintain your positivity and, just keeping your inner calm. And, again, like you all said, knowing that you're not alone. So again, thank you so much, everybody, to our panelists for sharing their personal stories, their lived expertise, and their insight. Keith, Luis, Sharon, very grateful to you. And
Thank you.
And thank you to our audience as well for joining us today for this episode of Unlocking Strength Within, Working with Parkinson's. This session was recorded and will be available to view on demand on APDA's YouTube channel. Please be sure to check out all of the other episodes of the Unlocking Strength Within series and APDA's other wonderful educational webinars, as well as APDA's virtual calendar of events available on our website. Remember that APDA is here to provide the support, education, research, and community that will help everyone impacted by Parkinson's disease live life to the fullest. We're here for you. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Hi, I'm Leslie Chambers, President and CEO of the American Parkinson Disease Association. Thank you so much for joining us today on our program. Every day, APDA is committed to providing helpful programs just like this one, as well as a wide variety of support groups, exercise classes, and educational programs to support the Parkinson's disease community. Whether online or in person, APDA is here for you every step of the way. You can find all of our upcoming virtual events on our website at apdaparkinson.org/events. We keep you posted on our social media channels as well, so make sure you follow us there. You can also connect to local resources and events through our nationwide network of chapters and information and referral centers. Remember, we're just a click or a phone call away. If you've enjoyed today's broadcast, I hope you will consider making a donation to help keep programs like this possible. Every gift, large or small, helps APDA support people living with PD through thoughtful programming, reliable resources, groundbreaking research. Please visit apdaparkinson.org/donate today to support our critical work for those with Parkinson's. We are so grateful for your generosity.